Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /EntitledPeople, where people seem to think the world revolves around them and nobody else matters. And in today's episode, what's worse than having entitled Karens as neighbors, guys? We've got people throwing tantrums over bumper stickers, stealing fences, keying cars, and one OP tells a story about the time a group of Karens blocks the road to his house and it doesn't end well. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So a bit of context here. I'm a 24-year-old female and I've had my fair share of religious trauma. So I'm very open about the fact that I'm not religious. In fact, I have a particular interest in occult symbols that some religious people may find offensive. That said, on top of many stickers on the bumper of my car, I also have a tiny occult symbol sticker. Not gonna specifically say which one on my car bumper, just below the license plate. The sticker's been there for about 3 years now. I moved into my boyfriend's apartment not too long ago. One of the other tenants, a 65-year-old female who we'll call Karen in our apartment complex, happens to be extremely religious. Like, to the point that her car's covered in so many I love Jesus stickers that you can't even see the actual color of the car. From what I've noticed, she's also under the impression that everyone has to cater to her beliefs and show her respect. Now, the apartment complex I live in has a very small parking lot, and I have a tendency to park my car in the same spot every time. The other day, however, I had to park in a completely different spot, which is no biggie, right? Except the only spot available was right next to Karen's car. I didn't think much of it at the time, as I assumed most people don't have the urge to investigate someone else's car. Nor would they care, but oh boy was I wrong. Flash to today, where my boyfriend was walking to his car. Karen rushes towards him, looking very distressed, and she says to him, "Come with me, there's a problem over here. Look what's parked right here." Now, the woman was so loud that I decided to see what was going on from my back balcony. I watch as she leads my boyfriend to my car, points at it, and then asks my boyfriend if he knows whose car this is. My boyfriend just played dumb, claiming he had no idea whose car it was. Karen then goes on to tell my boyfriend that she and her husband had to pray over my car all day long. He then said that she called the landlord and complained about my evil car, and that if she can't find the owner of the car and make them remove the occult sticker, that she was gonna call the police and a towing service to remove my car from the parking lot. Her reasoning behind this is that her crappy car wouldn't start because my car with the quote devil marking on it was parked right next to it. Karen still doesn't know the car is mine, and I've moved it to a different spot, not in the parking lot. Hopefully she leaves it alone and moves on. Also, my boyfriend asked me to remove the sticker from my car to avoid drama, so I did. Apparently he's worried that the woman would start looking for my car and that my car will get towed and our rent will be raised because I'm not on the lease to our apartment. Needless to say, I'm feeling defeated. You know what? Sometimes it's not worth the drama and headache from dealing with a Karen, and I think OP's boyfriend has a point. Like, you never know, right? Karen might literally spend her days looking for OP's car to get it towed or even to vandalize it, so better to be safe than sorry, right? With that said though, like, you'd think that with all the stickers that Karen has on her car, that it would be able to withstand one single occult sticker on a stranger's vehicle, right? And I'm referring to the "my car won't start because the devil mobile is right beside it," which I do find funny. And if you think that was a bit ridiculous, it only gets worse from here, guys. So we've had issues with our attached neighbor from the moment we bought our house. Originally, it was just a 60-something woman and her 18-year-old grandson. The day we moved in, we tried to make small talk and introduce ourselves. The woman was dropping hints that the old owners used to bake her goodies on a weekly basis and how much she missed it, kind of insinuating that we should be like them because she deserved to be treated like a princess. The grandson introduced himself as the worst person in town that knows all the top gang members, and he's not a person that's to be messed with. And what an intro that was. So afterwards, we just tried to keep a friendly distance and stay out of their way. Suddenly, about a week after living here, they began screaming at odd hours. They would blast music, bang on the walls, have loud arguments, all the fun stuff. The police were at their house for domestic disputes all the time, due to the woman calling cops on her grandson. And up to this point, we've just let them have their problems because it's not like we have kids to worry about protecting. It's just my partner and I in our mid-20s. Fast forward to last month, one evening after it gets dark. We heard what we thought were gunshots right in our backyard, so we were a bit concerned. We have cameras that we installed just to be safe, so we checked them. The grandson and his friends were sitting in their yard talking about shooting other rounds in the air. How everyone will just think it's fireworks. Unfortunately, it was dark and we couldn't see them shoot it, but the camera picks up the sound of them shooting off 9 rounds, so naturally, we called the cops. The kids then left, and the cops couldn't prove anyone was on the premises with a gun, so they let it go. Not soon after that, the woman decided to let her daughter, sister-in-law, and children move in with them for who knows what reason. Before this, they had only come visit on the holidays, and one time, they left their infant child on the street in a carrier for over half an hour, until I knocked on the door and let them know she was out there. It's none of my business, but from then on, the screaming and yelling just got worse, and this time with crying kids in the mix. I had half a mind to call CPS, but I've heard awful things happen to kids in the system, so I couldn't bring myself to do it. This month, we went on a road trip to see some cool places and visit family. We left, and we were checking our cameras when we had service, which wasn't that much. One day, we get a call from our neighbor saying our attached neighbors were building a really ugly shed with spare planks from who knows where. We tried not to worry too much because up until this point, their crappy shed wasn't our problem, other than an eyesore in the neighborhood. We just enjoyed the rest of our trip and let it go, occasionally checking to make sure they weren't in our yard or anything, since it's nicely fenced in and gated. We didn't catch anything on the camera other than them building their crappy shed. Well, when we arrived home, I gotta tell you, I lost it. We came home to find that these entitled idiots dug out and they stole a part of our fence to create a back fence/gate for their yard. We measured it and it was a good 8-foot chunk of chain link fence they dug out and stole from us. Unfortunately, our camera didn't catch them taking our fence. We want to press charges, but we're not sure how to go about it. I'm just so livid, and I know yelling at them won't fix it. But how can you be so entitled that you can't even buy your own chain link fence, but instead steal your neighbors when they're not even home? Entitled people suck. Yeah, that's gotta be a crime or something, I'm sure of it. Like, I've read about neighbors stealing water, electricity, plants from people's yards, but an 8-foot chunk of fence, oh my goodness, this is something else. Like, just imagine coming home from vacation and seeing a chunk of your fence gone, and it's now being used to fence off your neighbor's side. Like, I think I would be throwing hands at that point, guys. OP has every right to be livid, and I would be calling cops so fast. Like, how would you even go about responding to that situation? So let me preface this with my sympathy for downstairs apartment dwellers. I have been there. I know that pain, and it's hard having feet above you all the time. That said, my family moved into the upstairs unit of a split-level duplex about 4 years ago. We met with the downstairs neighbors, who informed us they were also moving out the next couple of months. Things were peaceful, they moved, and for about 3 months, we didn't have any neighbors. Then one day, a moving van appears, and we had neighbors again. They were an old couple and very reserved. We tried to be friendly, but they made it pretty apparent right from the start that they weren't interested in any more contact than necessary. I even held out my hand to shake the husband's, and the guy just stared at it. And that was fine, honestly. I'm not huge on being insta-friends with neighbors anyways. I figured we would just leave each other be. Well, that wasn't the case. Within the first 2 days, the neighbor lady comes up complaining about us banging around upstairs. Now that was strange because we'd just been laying there watching TV, and our son hadn't been horsing around or anything. He was sitting there quietly reading a book. We promised to try to be quieter, but not long after she'd left, she was back at our door saying, "You're doing it again. You have to stop this. I don't want to ask again." We weren't doing anything, and we did suggest any number of things she could have been hearing. The old plumbing, the building shared boiler kicking up, but she wouldn't have any of it. She told me word for word, "Just shut up. I didn't move here to hear loud noises all day." And I just thought to myself, okay, I guess we're dealing with a crazy person here. A couple of days later, we get a formal noise complaint from our property manager. Things rapidly went downhill from there. We couldn't listen to music at any volume, couldn't run the washer, the dryer, the dishwasher when they were home, which was most of the time, and walking had to be cat-like, and God forbid our son laugh, jump, or play. Any infraction had the neighbors pounding on their ceiling, the stairwell walls, or our door. We quickly learned that the husband was far scarier than his wife. The man now actually got in our faces, and one time, he poked his finger directly in front of my eyes, snarling, saying, "I don't have to take this crap from young punks like you." To top it all off, the husband got a punching bag and he set it up. Now this would have been fine, except he practiced at 4 in the morning every single day. And since he had it hooked up to the ceiling of the basement, when he hit the thing, it would shake the house. We tried to talk to him about it, but the guy blew us off. And still, he had the gall to complain about noise all the time. The final straw was about 6 months into living with them. Now I remember because that day started with me walking down my hallway to go take a shower, and the neighbor starts pounding on the floor beneath me, screaming at me to shut the F up, which scared the crap out of me. Later that day, around 6 p.m., our son had a small accident and he spilled some food all over himself. We took the dirty clothes and set them to wash in the washing machine, and the neighbor starts beating on the door. He was yelling, and it sounded and felt like he was throwing his whole weight against it. I actually had a panic attack, and I took our son to his room while my husband went to face the man. He was shouting about how much noise he had to put up with all the time, and my husband was trying to explain that he was being totally unreasonable. That's when the guy pokes my husband hard in the chest, and he says, "If management doesn't do something about you, I will." Now, it was only a vague threat, but it was enough to get the managers to take us seriously at least. We filed a police report, and we managed to get a formal complaint in for once. However, I was still terrified by what happened. Although the neighbors were older, the man was certainly still strong. He was a big guy, and the escalation had me so frightened. I felt like there was nothing I could do but wait for him to intimidate us again. But that's when I hatched a plan. I took notice that the neighbor would get up early to work out with his punching bag. The guy would start around 4 a.m. Then I'd hear his wife leave the house and go to work at about 4:30. When his wife would leave, he would stop, go for a half-hour run, get back home to take a shower, and then head to work himself. Our duplex had a shared boiler, I mentioned, for heat and hot water. It's actually a pretty good size, but it doesn't take too long to exhaust. So I began. The dreadful rumble of the punching bag would begin, and I would lie awake, waiting for the neighbor lady to leave the house. The second I heard her car pulling out of the driveway and saw him jog down the street, I would spring out of bed, run to the bathroom, crank the hot water on the tub's faucet as high as it would go, and then wait. I would sit in my window, waiting for him to return from his jog. And like clockwork, the guy would get back at 5 a.m., and I would run back and turn it off. The first couple of times, I didn't hear much. It was a disgruntled murmur, maybe, but I was diligent. This guy couldn't stand much irritation, I knew, so I just had to be patient. On the third day I did this, I heard a loud bang from the downstairs bathroom, and I heard him shouting. The shouting wasn't at us, but in general. I then heard him banging around, slamming the door, and then peeling out of the driveway in his truck. I kept it up. Every day I heard his effing punching bag, I would wait eagerly in bed to ruin his post-workout shower. It actually got to the point where it was fun. One time, I went back to the bathroom to test the water when I saw him coming back and it was ice cold. I actually threw back my head and laughed. It felt good to get him back, even though it was really, really petty. We stopped hearing complaints and the guy slowly reduced his morning workouts. We even started seeing plumbers parked in their lot, and then we started seeing confused and frightened plumbers hastily leaving, while the neighbors screamed at them when they couldn't find anything wrong. We even got phone calls from management asking if we're having issues with our hot water, and my husband had to suppress wild giggles at the look on my face when I said, "No, it's been working fine." Things calmed down and the outburst tapered off, and one fine day, as spring began to arrive, I saw the neighbors loading their furniture into the back of a moving truck. I set an alarm specifically to ruin their showers one last time before they left. They moved out and we got new neighbors. We haven't had any complaints since and life's been good. It's been about 3 years and I still get a warm, fuzzy feeling when I recall how I got those entitled nightmare neighbors back. Now that was frickin' brilliant, guys, and honestly, mega dedication and determination on OP's part, because I don't think I would have been able to keep that up for that long. But I guess you never know until you're put in a situation like that, right? And one more thing, I only wish OP didn't mess with the water on the last day. Like, imagine the day they move out and the hot water magically comes back. That would have been sweet. So I live on a fairly large 4,800-acre ranch in Montana. Now, I'm not a rancher and I don't pretend to be, but I inherited the ranch and I leased the land out to people who know what they're doing. Now, when I took possession of the property, I had boundaries reviewed and marked by a surveyor, and with my trusty ATV, I verified the fence was intact all around my property and was marked no trespassing according to the law. I met my neighbors and tried to live quietly in the beauty I had. One day, coming back from town, I found 3 cars blocking my driveway. Now, my driveway is a private gravel road, about 1¼ miles long from my fenced, marked gate on the public access road. There was nobody around, and because of the way the road was built, with drainage ditches on either side, there was no way to drive around them and no way to drive past them. But I was about 3/4 of a mile from my house, so I climbed up on my truck to see if I could see anyone around. No joy. Now, I did consider just chaining onto the vehicles and towing them with my truck, at least until I can get by, but I figured I'd better get some witnesses, so I called the sheriff's office. Fortunately, the deputy on duty on my side of the county was fairly close by, so he swung by in half an hour or so. I then point to the vehicle saying, "I came back from town and I found these cars parked here. I don't know who they are, I can't get past them, and I can't see anyone around here. I'd like to get past them to my house." The sheriff says, "Well, I can ticket them and order them towed, but the nearest tow truck is probably 2 hours away. Why not just tow them yourself?" I replied, "That's what I was thinking of doing, but I wanted a witness." He then says, "Okay, let me give you a hand." So we took some pictures of it and we towed the cars out of the way, which did cause some damage to the road surface. Gravel, right? Now, the damage is what really annoyed me. I had just paid the bill to have the road graded and more gravel added, something that has to be done every year or so on such roads, but I was able to get by, which was the important thing. The next morning, the cars were still there, and the morning after, they were still there. I had enough. It had been about 3 days now, so I drove out to the cars with some wooden cribbing and a high-lift jack. I then proceeded to jack the cars up, put the cribbing down, and left the cars there, the wheels up in the air. It took 2 more days before anyone showed up. That's when 8 people showed up, all angry because their cars had essentially been booted. They didn't like it when I told them they owed me for parking and damage done to the road because they blocked it. I say, "You know this is a private road, right?" They answered, "We didn't know." And that's when I told them, "You had to pass a closed gate with signs to get on this road. And then you blocked the road because you were too stupid to park like an adult. You blocked emergency access to my home. I should have had your cars towed, which the sheriff told me I could do." At this point, they start threatening me, telling me they'd call the police. To which I responded, "Go for it." Well, it turns out they were backpacking and all their phones had died, so they wanted me to call the police. Fair enough. So I called the deputy, the same one that showed up, and since he already knew the situation, their claims didn't get far. This time, I had the deputy trespass them and escort them off my property. I said they can wait for the tow truck on the public road. Also, I'd like to have their names, addresses, license numbers, and vehicle registration noted in your report for my lawsuit. The deputy tells me no problem. He took them to the public road and then called a tow truck, which took 4 hours to arrive. It was a $500 fee per vehicle to lower them, and to tow them off my property to the public road. About a month later, I received notice that they were suing me. Fair enough, I counterclaimed them in the local court. My lawyer laughed at their claims, and so did the judge. They were very unhappy when he ordered them to pay for resurfacing the road, plus storage and punitives. They threatened to appeal, and that's when my lawyer explained that they were welcome to do so, but it would be likely 3 years before it's scheduled, plus legal fees on their end, and their odds of losing were pretty high. Plus, we would include more legal charges, plus charges for their camping on my land, and damages, etc. It did take a year, but I got the payment from the third hiker last week. I decided that the money will go help pay for my annual summer barbecue for the county's emergency responders. 2 days of smoked briskets, games for the kids, swimming in my pool or my stream, and whatever. I do this every year since it's a small town. Small town living, so much better than the big city I originally came from. Listen, can't say those people didn't deserve what they got. Like, parking on private property is one thing, but to block a road with your cars and then go camping for a week? OP should have towed those people for sure. Let them figure it out when they got back. But yeah, those entitled brats suing OP was the most outrageous part. And this person comments, "Get yourself a bulldozer so you can do your own road maintenance. And if anyone ever does this again, just scrape a big hole, push the cars into it, and cover them up." What cars? So for some background, this car wasn't mine. It was my brother-in-law's, and he's suing for all the damages, which is thousands of dollars. So it all started when I decided I wanted to learn how to drive a stick shift. Since my brother-in-law is the only person I know with a manual car, I had him come over and teach me. The thing is, he drives a really loud, muscly car. When the car starts up, it does make a rather loud rev. We made sure to do it in the afternoon, as to not wake people up and try to be considerate. Anyways, it was about the 3rd or 4th day of him teaching me when Karen appears. Karen comes up to us and says, "Hey, nice car. It's a bit too loud for my taste, but it's still nice." I say, "Thanks." Karen then says, "Listen, could you try keeping it down a bit? My baby doesn't seem to like it that much." To which I respond, "Okay, sure. We've been driving during the day, so it doesn't wake people up. I didn't know anyone around here had a baby. I'm so sorry about that." Karen says, "It's not a problem. Just be quieter, okay?" Now, that kind of made me mad because I thought it was a friendly chat. 2 days go by with no signs of her. I wake up, get ready, and I wait for my brother-in-law to come over so we can start my lesson. I walk outside, and lo and behold, Karen was there. She says to me, "I thought I told you to keep it down. Did I not?" I respond, "I'm sorry, I can't control it. It's just how the car is," and she then stops me and says, "I don't care. Stop being so loud." And with that, she was gone. My brother-in-law got to my place, and off we went. We came back to my house to eat lunch, and about 2 hours later, my sister and mom come over, and they tell us to go look outside at the car. The entire driver's side was scratched up, and even a tire was popped. And only one person came to mind when I saw it, Karen. So we walked down to Karen's house, which was only a few houses down, and we knocked on the door. All we hear coming from the other side is, "I'm not apologizing. Go home." My brother-in-law just screams at her and says, "Then you'd better have a good case in court because that's gonna cost a lot to fix, and I'm suing you for every effing cent." Karen replies, well, maybe keep it down then when I tell you to, and this won't happen. So we head back, call the police, and we get everything ready for what was about to come. As soon as they got there, we start to explain what happened. How I was learning how to drive stick, how the car was, showed them the damages, told them what Karen said, etc. We were making sure our side was accurate, so we made sure our timeline was correct. After a while, we walked with police to her house, and it went down about as well as you'd expect. The police officer says, excuse me ma'am, can you come out here for a minute? We want to speak to you about the car. Karen says, I'm not apologizing. I told them to keep it down and they didn't. They deserve it. The officer tells her, ma'am, what you did is against the law and they're pressing charges. You need to get out here or we will get a warrant for your arrest and we will come back. Karen says, nice try, but I'm not stupid. I know my rights and you're not allowed to enter my home without my consent or a search warrant. She was stubborn. Again, they went back and forth for a bit. After the allotted time set, we went back to my house and the cops left to get a warrant and we waited. Currently, the lawsuit's in order and the trial's in a few days. I've never found it easier to drive a stick shift, knowing I won't have to deal with her condescending ways and tones. Some people's sense of self-entitlement never ceases to amaze me, guys. Like the fact that the nasty neighbor vandalized the car and admitted it, and even told the cops, yeah, I did it, so what, you can't arrest me, is absolutely wild. But yeah, that's some people for you. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our / entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in our / malicious compliance episode, where bad bosses are getting destroyed by their employees. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.